Touch a real stick and I'll call the medics myself. Laughter detonated across the Sonoran heat, braided with the thunder of turbines. Staff Sergeant Lena Torres lay half-hidden beneath F-21 Viperhawk X-214 wrench steady, jaw set. Oil striped her sleeves. Sweat ran salt into her eyes. The bolts took torque. The insults slid off mostly. From the hangar shade, a loose semicircle of pilots watched like it was sport. Captain Derek Hanlon, tall, smug, tapped a soda can against his thigh. Bets on the table. Gentleman month's pay, says Torres never hears a call sign on tower comms, not unless it's to fetch coffee. Hollow chuckles answered. No one argued. The runway at Red Mesa Airfield writhed in the noon mirage. Heat lifted off the tarmac in visible sheets, distorting canopies and tails into liquid metal. Jet fuel hung in the air. That sweet razor stink that lived in your clothes. Lena kept her head down in the Viperhawk's shadow, forearms tight with work. At 27, barely 5'2", she disappeared under the airframe, hands scarred with stories only aluminum and unforgiving tools could tell. This was her ground. She didn't need to win an argument. She needed to keep a machine alive. Tell me where you're watching from and if this kind of story gets you. Tap subscribe, Stories Unseen. Because what happens next breaks every quiet rule about who belongs in a cockpit. The precise crunch of high-polish Oxfords on gravel cut through the engine wash. Colonel Grant Ellison arrived like a vertical line drawn through chaos early 50s. Uniform pressed sharp enough to draw blood. Eyes that graded everything on a pass-fail no one passed. Lena slid out on her creeper and popped to attention, sweat tracking her temple, gaze locked to his. And you are. His voice had the warmth of an inventory tag. Staff Sergeant Torres. Sir. The air between them calcified. Ellison let the silence hang too long. Why is someone like you working critical systems on a Viperhawk? This isn't a motorcycle bay. I'm lead tech on X-214, sir. Post-flight verification on the aileron control servo. No wobble in her tone. He stepped closer. Something black in her open toolbox caught his eye. He plucked it free and flipped the leather cover. A diary. My civilian flight logbook. Sir. Dawn flights. Doubled shifts for lessons. Inked hours toward certification, her future in neat lines. He snapped it shut. Mechanics don't play pilot. This stays with me. He tucked it under his arm like captured colors. Back to work. The sabotage started almost immediately. A torque wrench gone missing. Hours later, discovered behind the nitrogen cart. A maintenance ticket she filed, gone from the system. Then reappearing with her signature scrubbed. Someone salted her water bottle with grit so fine it vanished on the tongue. Rough on the teeth. It was petty, practiced, and pointed. You don't belong. Nights stretched long on Red Mesa. Floodlights painted X-214 in polished gold while the desert wind hissed through chain link. Lena ate alone, worked alone, walked the perimeter when the hangar quieted, reciting checklists to keep the noise inside her head in formation. She told no one that Ellison once flew and punched out over a bad repair. You could hear the ghost of that day in his disdain. It didn't matter. Machines told the truth if you listened. Morning came with hard light and louder engines. From the hangar mouth. Pilots formed another lazy half-moon. The day's bets beginning already. Hanlon raised his can like a toast. Newsflash, Talon-7 is for hunters, not hangar rats. Lena slid under X-214 again, palms on cool aluminum, breathing with the airplane. The Viperhawk answered in faint ticks and settling groans. And then, there it was. A tiny, wrong click riding the wind from the wing root. The kind of brittle note an aileron servo makes when it's been stressed past tolerance. Her hand went still on the wrench, if that sound was real. Someone wasn't just trying to break her. They were about to break a pilot. A single sound can decide if a pilot lives or doesn't come back by week 2. Lena Torres wasn't just another face in the hangar, she'd become a cautionary tale. New airmen stole glances at her the way you'd look at a posted warning sign, not with cruelty, but with quiet avoidance. She ate alone, worked alone, walked the chain-link perimeter at night while the F-21 Viper Hawk shimmered gold under floodlights. Morning cut the air in hard, white light. From Hangar 6, Lena watched the main flight line like she was watching over family. That's when she heard it, the metallic snap of a pre-flight checklist flipped too fast. A young pilot, Captain Ethan Calloway, was rushing his inspection on X-214. Her gaze narrowed as he reached the wing route. The aileron control servo was still partially exposed from maintenance. He tested it with one hand, too abrupt, too heavy. The faint metallic clack drifted to her on the heat. She knew that sound. It was the brittle, hollow note of a fatigue part, the kind that didn't belong in any healthy servo, the kind that failed at altitude, when failure meant disaster. Her cleaning rag hit the floor. She was already moving toward the Viper Hawk, boots striking sharp against the tarmac. "Captain," she called, voice low but firm. "Hold up. I need to take another look at that servo. Something's off." Calloway glanced down at her, one eyebrow lifting. "It's fine. Sergeant, I followed the checklist. I heard the servo pop under load." Lena replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. "That's not normal." His jaw tightened. "With respect. Sergeant, you're not cleared to reinspect my bird." Her voice sharpened. "With respect. Captain, if that servo fails mid-flight, you won't get to worry about your launch window. What's going on here?" The shadow of Colonel Grant Ellison cut across them. His tone was already loaded, the kind that assumed an answer before the question was finished. "Nothing." "Sir," Calloway said quickly, "just about to taxi." "Sir," Lena began, "I believe there's a defect in the aileron control servo. I need clearance to..." Ellison's hand came up, slicing the air like a blade. "You have an assignment. Staff Sergeant, return to your post, now, for a heartbeat." The three of them stood in a standoff, the pilot eager to launch, the colonel unwilling to bend, the sergeant holding her ground. Then Lena's eyes dropped, but her pulse didn't. She stepped back, boots heavy against the tarmac. From the hangar, she watched X-214 taxi toward the runway, sunlight glinting off the canopy like a knife's edge. Her hands curled into fists as the afterburners roared, shaking the air. The sound of that brittle clack was still in her ears, and if she was right, someone up there was already on borrowed time. The radio was never supposed to be this quiet. From Hangar 6, Lena Torres tracked F-21 Viper Hawk X-214 as it taxied out, sunlight sliding like molten silver along its canopy. Afterburners ignited with a roar that rattled the rafters, shaking fine dust from the beams. That afternoon, something broke the pattern. No tower update where one should have been. Then static and a clipped voice, taut with urgency. "Talon-7, repeat. Confirm status." Lena froze. Talon-7 meant X-214. The next transmission was more static than speech, broken shards punching through the noise. "Aileron control, negative response. Primary comms." She stepped to the hangar door, scanning the horizon, far over the Sonoran desert. A black speck jerked across the sky in uneven, unnatural lines. Above 18,000 feet, Captain Ethan Calloway was fighting a machine that no longer listened. It wasn't a choice. It was instinct. Her toolkit was over her shoulder before she knew it. Boots hammered the concrete as she cut for the control tower. She flashed her master keys, slipped through the maintenance corridor, and into the heart of the communications room, a forest of humming racks and blinking lights. One glance, and she saw it, the backup comms array running on unstable power. Status lights flickering like a dying pulse. A single black lead hung loose, copper shielding scorched where it had arced against the frame. She yanked away bundled cabling, fingers already in motion. "Kill power to the backup module." She barked to a startled tech. That'll drop our last link to Talon-7, he protested. It's already useless. Give me 30 seconds. Power cut. Sparks whispered against her knuckles as she slid in fresh cable from her kit, locked it down, and signaled for power. The module spun up with a low whine. Dead air hissed, shifted, and then tower. This is Talon-7. Fuel critical. Approach unstable. Her kit snapped shut. She didn't slow until she hit the glass-walled tower cabin. Ellison was there, eyes fixed on the radar, tracking Talon-7's erratic path. Staff Sergeant Torres, you're out of line. She didn't break stride. I reconnected your backup channel. You've got partial comms. You were not authorized to. You want him down alive or not? Silence swallowed the room. Ellison didn't answer, didn't stop her. Lena grabbed a spare headset. Talon-7, this is Red Mesa Tower. I have you on partial. Do you copy? A ragged voice bled through the static. Tower. Reading you barely. Controls compromised. Fuel low. This is Staff Sergeant Torres. I've worked on your bird. You've got an aileron servo failure. Primary hydraulics are gone. We're going manual override. She walked him through it. Each word as precise as a torque setting. Red lever. Auxiliary aileron release. 2-stage forward. Hold 3 seconds. Now bring your speed down in small increments. A warning lit the tower display. Wind shear ahead. Talon-7 abort primary. Divert to Raven Strip 2. You'll catch the arrestor cable. In the distance. The Viper Hawk came in hot nose high. Engine straining at the last 100 meters. Calloway dropped the tailhook. The next sound was a whip crack as the cable caught. The jet shuddered like it might tear itself apart, then began to slow. The arrestor cable screamed under strain, snapping taut with a violent crack. The Viper Hawk shuddered, metal groaning as its speed bled away in seconds. Tower Talon-7 down safe. The comm room erupted in applause. Lena Torres lowered the headset without a word and walked for the stairwell. Her boots echoed down the metal steps steady, unhurried. The adrenaline was still burning in her veins, but her face gave nothing away. The debrief came hours later. Calloway stood before the assembled personnel, flight suit streaked with sweat and dust. Talon-7 went up for training. He began, voice carrying across the silent room. Midway through, I lost primary aileron control and comms. Fuel was bleeding out. Options were gone. He paused, meeting Lena's eyes. Then someone came on the channel. Staff Sergeant Lena Torres. She knew my aircraft systems better than I did. Walked me through a manual override I'd never used. I'm standing here because of it. The room stayed quiet, the weight of his words landing like a solid hit. I've submitted a formal recommendation for the Silver Wings Valor Medal and for her immediate entry into the Advanced Flight Officer program. That evening, a knock broke the hum of her quarters. Colonel Grant Ellison stood in the doorway, her black leather flight logbook in hand. "Staff Sergeant," he said, his tone stripped of its usual iron. "I was wrong. My judgment was flawed. You'll report to the training office at 800. The training field was functional to the point of brutality. Scorched asphalt runways, a skeletal control tower, prefab classrooms that rattled in the wind, in a fresh flight suit. Logbook clipped to her board. Lena stepped onto the tarmac. Her first drill was simple on paper takeoff. Pattern flight in an R-19 Skytrainer and return for a precision landing. Halfway through the final turn, the instructor's voice snapped over comms. "Engine failure, respond. No hesitation. Throttle back, rudder to compensate. Trim adjustment smooth and exact." The airframe steadied. She brought it in. Touchdown firm but centered, stopping with less than 100 feet of runway left. By week 3, the team drills began 4 aircraft formations, live fire runs, in one sortie. The lead took a simulated hit. Lena rolled into position without waiting for orders, lined up on the target, and fired inside the attack window. The final evaluation was designed to break even the best. She was given a modified test platform with unfamiliar controls. Halfway through the mission profile, Her display flashed a warning intermittent aileron signal loss. Diagnostics in flight. Fluctuation isolated. Inputs adjusted manually. By the time she touched down, the glitch was gone. In the briefing room, Ellison slid a small box across the table inside. The insignia of an officer. Staff Sergeant Lena Torres, he said, meeting her eyes with something close to respect. Welcome to the Corps. The ceremony was short. On the flight line, with an F-29 Shadow Strike climbing into a desert sunset, Calloway fastened the new bars to her collar. Lead's yours next month. Make it count. She nodded once. Count on it. That night, she stood alone at the far end of the runway, where sodium lights faded into desert dark. Her shadow stretched long over the asphalt as another sortie rumbled into the night sky. The desert wind carried the sound to her, a reminder. Tomorrow's missions were already waiting. That night, Lena walked to the far end of the runway, where sodium lights bled into the desert dark. Stars hung low, sharp against the black. She thought of that first day the stairs. The quiet cuts meant to push her out. Every flight, every drill, every choice had been a brick in the path that brought her here. Tomorrow, that path would carry her beyond the runway's edge, into air where nothing stayed still and nothing was given. The wind carried the distant growl of a sortie lifting into the night. She turned toward the hangars, her new officer bars catching the glow not for decoration, but for the weight they carried. You don't have to shout to be heard. Just keep moving. One check, one climb, one landing, and one day, you'll realize you're already flying.